The hashtag was already a wildfire when the auditorium lights snapped on and cameras turned like rifles toward the stage. "Maya Brooks said he told me to trust the process." Dr. Alan Pierce faced the microphones and cleared his throat as if they were a jury. He read a statement that sounded polished and merciless. Maya Brooks said, "You promised you'd stand beside me." He said the research breach was hers alone. The crowd gasped like a single organism, and a phone chimed with the sponsor's exit. Liam Ortiz said, "Maya stepped back, but the aisle closed with flashes and questions." Dr. Alan Pierce said, "I was unaware of any misconduct," and the word unaware sliced cleaner than a blade. Maya saw her name roll across screens, red as a warning label. Chloe Hart said, "It's best to make a public apology," while her eyes glittered with relief. Maya Brooks said, "I won't confess to a lie." The stage smelled of hot lights, and shame burned brighter than the bulbs. The statement reached the internet before Maya left the stage, and every exit felt like a trapdoor. Chloe Hart said, "We will draft something softer," while links multiplied like spores. Liam Ortiz said, "Breathe, we need air," yet outside the rain slapped like blame. Dr. Alan Pierce said, "I must protect the integrity of the program," and the word protect charred its edges as it touched the feed. A student whispered that sponsors had fled. A donor wrote 3 cold sentences and deleted a decade of photos. Maya Brooks said, "I followed his protocol," but the echoes swallowed the word followed, as if it were a confession. The hallway posters fluttered with the gust of doors opening and closing. Evan Kim lingered near the bulletin board, as if the fiber of it held secrets. Nora did not answer the call. The building hummed with fluorescent judgment. Notifications pecked at Maya's phone like impatient sparrows, each with a new accusation dressed as certainty. A blogger asked if the data ever existed. A classmate posted a thread crowning themselves brave. Liam Ortiz said, "Say nothing tonight," but silence felt like surrender sewn shut. Chloe Hart said, "Apology first, truth later," and the order tasted like vinegar. Screenshots appeared with red circles accusing, arrows pointing where logic should have been. Dr. Alan Pierce said, "I regret that this occurred under my watch and slipped past he while letting the blame land." Maya Brooks said, "It was his method," but the words stuck like wet paper. The campus statue stared through rain, indifferent and bronze. Evan Kim watched the comments mutate, recording which lies grew fastest. Somewhere, a sponsor changed a bio line from partner to previously. The auditorium emptied into corridors of opinion, and an email subject line announced an emergency board review at dawn. Nora's last message remained unopened, a small square of home she could not face. Dr. Alan Pierce said, "Transparency is paramount," in a quote card framed by laurels. Chloe Hart said, "We can pivot to accountability," and the word pivot clicked like a lock. Liam Ortiz said, "You are not alone," and the warmth held back 1 cold inch of night. Maya Brooks said, "He let me present because the data scared him, and the truth landed with no followers." A rumor hatched that she had scrubbed the raw files. Another rumor declared that she blackmailed a grader. The building's vents hissed like snakes repeating. Evan Kim reread the original proposal, eyes catching a signature that did not belong where it lay. By the time the clock reached tomorrow, tonight felt fossilized. A trending panel debated her name like sport. A radio host laughed through an ad read. Dr. Alan Pierce said, "I will cooperate fully," and the word fully marched like soldiers. Chloe Hart said, "We must protect the institution," and the institution swallowed her syllables as tribute. Liam Ortiz said, "We gather everything now," and his voice found a spine inside her fear. Maya Brooks said, "Then we gather the parts he hid," and a plan unfurled in the dark. Evan Kim weighed the cost of speaking. Nora stood at her kitchen sink, phone on the counter, water running over a plate that was already clean. Outside the storm began to thin, but the air still smelled like electricity and rumor. Maya sat on the edge of her bed with the blinds half closed, light cutting her face into stripes of shadow. Liam Ortiz said, "Sleep is impossible when they paint you as guilty." She opened her laptop and saw her own smile twisted in memes. Chloe Hart said, "This is the price of prominence," her voice through text bubbles like pins on skin. Maya Brooks said, "I never wanted prominence, only honesty," but the walls answered with silence. The kettle clicked, a small sound against the roar of the internet. Nora Brooks sent a message that ended with 3 dots, then nothing. Evan Kim wrote a note in the margins of his journal, whispering to the paper, "Not the world." Maya closed her eyes and saw herself on stage again, but this time with no floor beneath her. Morning arrived with headlines like knives. A podcast host laughed about her downfall before sipping coffee. Maya Brooks said, "They don't even know me," clutching her phone as if it pulsed. Liam Ortiz said, "They don't want to know you, they want the story." Chloe Hart said, "Release a statement today," and her voice cracked with urgency disguised as care. Maya stared at the screen, showing a trending thread of her smiling in a classroom. She whispered, "That was the day I got his approval." But approval now tasted like ash. Nora Brooks avoided her calls, silence louder than insult. Evan Kim paused at the library entrance, watching classmates scroll, each screen an open wound that would not close. The library's silence was broken only by screens buzzing. Maya walked past rows of faces glowing blue with scandal. A classmate whispered, "She's still here," and the phrase rippled like poison. Liam Ortiz said, "Ignore them," but his own eyes betrayed exhaustion. Chloe Hart typed furiously on her tablet, rehearsing spin before a board call. Evan Kim whispered to himself, "They never see what's hidden," flipping to a page where Pierce's initials appeared twice. Maya Brooks said, "Why did he choose me?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Nora's absence at her side carved deeper than any stranger's words. The books on the shelves stood still, silent judges in paper and ink. Outside, rain had thinned but clouds hung heavy. A journalist shouted questions as she crossed the quad. Maya Brooks said, "I want to answer lies," but her voice cracked mid-syllable. Liam Ortiz said, "Keep walking," shielding her with his frame. Chloe Hart said, "The optics matter," pulling her phone higher to record her guidance. Dr. Alan Pierce gave a calm interview under a canopy nearby, declaring, "Integrity demands accountability," and the crowd clapped politely. Maya's fists tightened as if holding shards. Evan Kim lingered in the shadow of a column, whispering, "One sentence could change this storm," but he stayed silent still. Nora's number appeared on her phone, then vanished again. Night returned with thunder muttering in the distance. Maya sat with Liam at a kitchen table covered in notes, articles, and abandoned cups. Liam Ortiz said, "We fight this with proof," tracing lines across scattered documents. Maya Brooks said, "He hid the files, not me," her voice breaking but steadying after. Chloe Hart sent another message, "Time is running out." Nora scrolled through family photos instead of answering her daughter's call. Evan Kim stood on his balcony staring at the city, whispering, "Truth has a cost," as the rain fell again. Dr. Alan Pierce's face filled a TV screen in the corner, polished words cutting deeper than silence. Maya stared at the faculty boardroom doors as if they were prison gates. Liam Ortiz said, "They won't let you defend yourself." Inside, men and women with clipped voices debated her name like stock values. Chloe Hart said, "The optics are unsalvageable," as she typed a note. Dr. Alan Pierce said, "My legacy must remain untouched," and his eyes gleamed under the fluorescent glare. Maya Brooks said, "Your legacy was built on my work, though no one turned." A trustee whispered about revoked grants. Evan Kim flipped pages in his notebook, palms sweating, wondering if one line could unravel this theater. Nora's silence stretched from states away, her absence sharper than presence. The clock ticked like a gavel, each sound another blow. The hallway outside swelled with whispers as students pressed phones to their ears. A message board exploded with theories. Maya Brooks said, Do they believe any of it? Liam Ortiz said. They believe what entertains. Chloe Hart said. Perception is reality, her heels tapping like punctuation. Dr. Alan Pierce left the room to a round of polite nods, his shoulders unbowed. A freshman muttered, "She faked everything," and the words spread faster than fact. Evan Kim leaned against the wall, clutching papers that could slice through the noise, but fear sealed his lips. Nora ignored a call again, her voicemail a familiar silence. The rain started once more outside, drumming a verdict none of them chose. Evening brought new headlines, each harsher than the last. Maya Brooks said, "They make me a villain I don't recognize." Liam Ortiz said, "Then show them the truth." Chloe Hart said, "Truth without spin dies unheard." A viral clip replayed Alan's calm denial, framed with captions calling him noble. Donors withdrew with statements of disappointment. Students debated in cafes, sipping lattes while shredding her reputation. Evan Kim copied his notes onto clean sheets, his hands trembling. Nora stared at family photos, her phone glowing unanswered. Maya Brooks said, "Every silence feels like betrayal," and the weight of it bent her shoulders. Outside, neon signs flickered like false promises. The storm of outrage grew louder online, comments multiplying like insects. Maya Brooks said, "Every post steals another part of me." Liam Ortiz said, "We need evidence to strike back." Chloe Hart said, "Silence only deepens suspicion," rehearsing statements that cut. Dr. Alan Pierce appeared on television, calm and mournful, saying, "My trust was broken." Applause icons filled the stream. Evan Kim typed a draft of truth but hovered before sending, heart hammering. Nora lay awake, her phone face down, afraid of carrying her daughter's shame. Maya Brooks said, "If I disappear, will the noise follow?" And the question trembled through the walls. The campus quad glowed under flickering street lamps as voices argued in clusters. Maya Brooks said, "They chant my name like a curse." Liam Ortiz said, "Then let them hear your voice." Chloe Hart said, "Unscripted words are dangerous." A poster with her face was ripped in half and pinned to a bench. Dr. Alan Pierce shook hands with a dean nearby, smiling for cameras. Evan Kim held his notebook like a shield, whispering, "The truth will break him, but it may break me too." Nora's silence felt final, her absence a wound. Maya Brooks said, "I refuse to be erased," as the wind carried her words into the night. The board announced an inquiry, and the campus roared with speculation. Maya Brooks said, "They want a spectacle, not truth." Liam Ortiz said, "Then we give them what they fear." Chloe Hart said, "Damage control only works if you cooperate," her tone clipped. Dr. Alan Pierce shook hands with journalists as if he were the victim. Students scribbled posters that called her a fraud. Evan Kim gripped his notebook so tightly, the edges bent. Nora Brooks declined a video call, her absence slicing deeper than words. Maya Brooks said, "If I fall, I won't fall quietly." The hallway echoed with chants rising from outside, their rhythm pounding against the walls like drums of war. Outside, the protests surged with signs and megaphones. Maya Brooks said, "They don't want my truth, they want my silence." Liam Ortiz said, "Then speak louder than they shout." Chloe Hart said, "Every word now is a weapon that can cut you." Dr. Alan Pierce appeared on a balcony, raising his hand for quiet, his presence commanding. The crowd chanted his name like he was untouchable. Evan Kim muttered, "They cheer the wrong savior," but his voice drowned. A camera drone hovered above, capturing every angle of rage. Nora Brooks turned her phone over and let the notifications buzz unanswered. Maya's breath shook, but her stance held. That night, social feeds replayed clips of Alan framed as the betrayed mentor. Maya Brooks said, "He paints me as the disease he cures." Liam Ortiz said, "Then we need proof of his lies." Chloe Hart said, "Proof without trust is wasted." Evan Kim wrote a draft statement confessing the truth he had hidden, but fear froze his hand. Nora Brooks left a voicemail with no words, only the sound of breathing. The television replayed Alan's image with headlines of strength and grace. Maya Brooks said, "If they see me as a villain, maybe I'll show them one." Her voice a whisper turned iron. The city outside burned with neon like judgment, etched in light. The university released a statement promising transparency, but it dripped with polished lies. Maya Brooks said, "They speak as if I never existed except as a problem." Liam Ortiz said, "We need allies, not statements." Chloe Hart said, "Allies scatter when storms rise." Dr. Alan Pierce was pictured shaking hands with donors, his grin wide. Evan Kim whispered, "If I stay silent, I am complicit," and his pen scratched the page. Nora Brooks stared at a framed photo of her daughter on the mantel, her hand trembling. The world outside whirred with sirens and chants, louder than truth itself. Maya Brooks said, "They erase me, but I will carve myself back." Midnight came with a roar of online fury, threads multiplying with venom. Maya Brooks said, "Every post feels like a trial I never chose." Liam Ortiz said, "We will turn their weapons into mirrors." Chloe Hart said, without control, "You'll drown," though her voice quivered with doubt. Evan Kim finished a letter exposing Alan's deception, his hands shaking. Dr. Alan Pierce appeared again in polished clips, speaking of betrayal with sorrow in his voice. Nora Brooks sent a final message, "I can't stand in this storm," leaving Maya hollow. Maya Brooks said, "If truth costs everything, then let it burn." Her resolve forged in fire. The storm outside matched the chaos within. The silence of Evan's apartment cracked under the weight of his decision. Evan Kim said, "If I speak, I destroy him, but I also destroy myself." Maya Brooks said, "Then let the truth decide who deserves to fall." Liam Ortiz said, "You don't owe him silence." Chloe Hart said, "If you leak this, you burn every bridge left." Dr. Alan Pierce's smiling face filled the TV, painting himself as betrayed mentor. Evan's hands shook as he placed the letter on the table. Nora Brooks sent no reply, her absence pounding like a drumbeat. Maya Brooks said, "I was the shield he used. You were the witness. Don't let fear bury us both." The night hummed with storm winds, waiting for release. The next morning, the letter slipped into a reporter's inbox like a spark into dry wood. Maya Brooks said, "It's begun." Liam Ortiz said, "Once it's out, we can't pull it back." Chloe Hart said, "You've declared war on the institution," her voice thin with fear. Dr. Alan Pierce walked across campus with cameras trailing him, his smile still polished. Students gasped as excerpts leaked on social media. Evan Kim whispered, "I've set fire to everything," gripping his phone as messages exploded. Nora Brooks sat at her kitchen table, the letter screenshots glowing on her screen, her breath catching. The storm finally broke, and the rain was deafening. The campus erupted with shock, whispers slicing through holes. Maya Brooks said, "They finally see the cracks." Liam Ortiz said, "Cracks that could bring him down." Chloe Hart said, "Or cracks that bury you both." Dr. Alan Pierce denied with practiced poise, "This is fabrication, an attempt to tarnish truth." Students argued in heated circles, some turning against Maya, others questioning Alan. Evan Kim said, "The signature proves it," but doubt still clouded him. Nora Brooks stared at her daughter's face in news feeds, tears sliding quietly. Maya Brooks said, "At least now they know it wasn't me alone," her voice both broken and strong. Evening came with interviews unraveling on live broadcasts. Maya Brooks said, "He can't outrun proof forever." Liam Ortiz said, "But he's outrun worse with charm." Chloe Hart said, "Public sympathy bends toward him." Dr. Alan Pierce looked straight into the camera and said, "I trusted her, and she betrayed that trust." His voice trembled with rehearsed sorrow. Evan Kim watched his own name trending, dragged for daring to expose a mentor. Nora Brooks turned off her television, unable to hear either side. Maya Brooks said, "He trained me to guard his lies, but I'm done guarding." The night outside flickered with lightning that split the sky open. By midnight, the campus was split like fault lines. Supporters rallied for Maya. Others clung to Alan's charm. Maya Brooks said, "This isn't just about me, it's about every lie he told." Liam Ortiz said, "Then fight until the end." Chloe Hart said, "You've crossed a point of no return." Evan Kim whispered, "The truth is out, but so is my life." Dr. Alan Pierce prepared another statement for Dawn, the machine of influence still grinding. Nora Brooks left a message at last. "I see you. I believe you." Maya's chest heaved, relief cutting through the storm. She said, "Then I'm not alone anymore," as thunder rolled over the city. The inquiry convened in the largest lecture hall, and the crowd arrived hungry. Maya Brooks said he built this room to crown himself. Dr. Alan Pierce said, "I welcome scrutiny, as if it were a standing ovation." Liam Ortiz said, "We hold the floor or we lose the day." Chloe Hart said, "Choose precision over rage." A moderator stacked cue cards like thin shields. "Whoa." Evan Kim said, "I have the chain of edits and the signatures." The air tasted like copper and coffee, sharp and restless. Nora Brooks texted, "I am here," and a chair scraped as she sat in the back. Maya Brooks said, "He taught me to cite his method, then erased me from it." Alan smiled with courtroom calm. The lights hummed as cameras red-eyed the stage. A chant rose, then broke, like surf against concrete. The clock hands felt like blades turning. The moderator announced time limits and microphones blinked awake. Dr. Alan Pierce said, "Irregularities appeared only in her datasets." Maya Brooks said, "Those datasets were created under your supervision." Liam Ortiz said, "We request to display the version history." Chloe Hart said, "Visuals win hearts, not footnotes." Screens flashed with timestamps like constellations. Evan Kim said, "Notice how the document owner switches before submission." A ripple moved through the room, soft but sharp. Alan said, "I advised, I did not alter." Maya Brooks said, "Then why is your login on my drafts at 3:03 a.m.? The moderator swallowed and asked for decorum. Nora covered her mouth and breathed like she was learning it again. The hall tightened, every seat leaning forward. The chant did not return, but the silence thundered. The crowd demanded clarity, and clarity arrived like a blade. Evan Kim said, "I recorded the handoff meeting when my concerns were dismissed." Chloe Hart said, "Play it now." The audio filled the hall. Alan's voice saying, "We need a cleaner narrative, smooth as velvet over stone." Dr. Alan Pierce said, "Context matters," that was about formatting. Maya Brooks said, "You called truth a narrative because it would not kneel." Liam Ortiz said, "Show the grant email with the copied figures." The screen displayed a thread where praise turned into instruction to revise away anomalies. Nora whispered, "I hear you," as if across years. The moderator tapped a pen without rhythm. Alan's smile flickered like a faulty bulb. The audience exhaled in a single low note. The question shifted from if to how far. Pressure changed the room's gravity, and words gained weight. Dr. Alan Pierce said, "I protected the program from her recklessness." Maya Brooks said, "You protected yourself from accountability." Liam Ortiz said, "A witness will confirm the late-night edits." Evan Kim said, "I am the witness." Chloe Hart said, "We present checksum comparisons that tie his account to the file." The side screen filled with logs like a quiet avalanche. Alan said, "You would ruin a career that built yours." Maya Brooks said, "You sacrificed me to save yourself." A murmur rolled like thunder finding a canyon. Nora stood, spine straight as a promise. The moderator asked for a brief recess, but no one moved. The storm outside aligned with the storm inside, window to pulse. The climax rose like sirens in the blood. The moderator said, "Final statements." Dr. Alan Pierce said, "My record speaks for itself," but the room heard the tremor. Maya Brooks said, "Mine was never allowed to speak." Liam Ortiz said evidence stands when charisma falls. Evan Kim said, I feared the cost, and I accept it. Chloe Hart said, the committee must weigh proof over performance. Nora whispered, I'm with you. A sudden hush pooled as if the hall exhaled. Alan reached for composure and found glass. Maya Brooks said, I will no longer carry your alibi. The light seemed colder. The audience did not cheer or hiss. They simply understood. The silence crowned the moment heavier than any verdict. The inquiry ended without applause, only a heavy pause. Maya Brooks said, they saw me this time. Liam Ortiz said, they saw more than that, they saw him. Chloe Hart said, reputations bend, but the institution will cling to him until the last. Dr. Alan Pierce left the hall with cameras still orbiting, his smile cracked but not gone. Evan Kim whispered, I've lit a fire that will follow me. Nora Brooks touched her daughter's shoulder, whispering, you're not erased. The air felt cleansed by storm, yet charged with aftershock. Light had ended, but its shadow stretched long. News anchors replayed the inquiry, their tones divided between scandal and redemption. Maya Brooks said, I am no longer his silence. Liam Ortiz said, let them argue, truth doesn't vanish. Chloe Hart said, control is lost, chaos will decide. Evan Kim sat alone, trending both hero and traitor. Dr. Alan Pierce held a press conference framed by flags declaring, I remain committed to excellence, his words echoing hollow. Nora Brooks turned off her television, whispering, excellence doesn't live in lies. The storm outside had passed, but the city still smelled of rain and change. Campus walls carried new posters, some demanding reform, others defending Alan. Maya Brooks said, I became a symbol I never wanted. Liam Ortiz said, symbols endure longer than names. Chloe Hart said, they'll rebuild their trust in pieces. Evan Kim said, the cost is already written on us. Dr. Alan Pierce walked past students without looking at them, eyes fixed ahead. Nora Brooks said, history remembers what silence erases. Maya touched the edges of a ripped flyer with her photo, whispering, at least now I'm seen. The air carried chants, but softer, like embers cooling. Evening draped the city in golden shadow. Maya Brooks said, I will not beg for forgiveness that isn't owed. Liam Ortiz said, your voice is the only ground you stand on. Chloe Hart said, your story has outgrown the spin. Evan Kim said, I chose truth, and it cost me peace. Dr. Alan Pierce dined with donors behind tinted glass, smiling as though unscathed. Nora Brooks poured tea, her voice calm. Healing begins when lies lose their grip. Maya exhaled slowly, the air tasting less bitter, though never sweet. The city hummed, alive with quiet defiance. Midnight arrived with quiet streets and restless screens. Maya Brooks said, I will not be forgotten. Liam Ortiz said, let them carry your story, it no longer belongs to them alone. Chloe Hart said, reputations burn, but scars remain. Evan Kim closed his notebook for the last time, whispering, truth is heavier than silence. Dr. Alan Pierce's face still flickered on billboards, but the cracks showed in the glow. Nora Brooks said, the world tried to erase you, but you carved yourself back. Maya Brooks said, then let this scar be my final word. The night held her voice like a vow.